Although EB02 is a short format out here for us in the West, especially for the rest of May, there are plenty of regionals and treasure cups on the horizon, both online and at your local game stores, that you're probably going to want to metagame for prize cards, invites to nationals, etc. Now, we're going to be looking at this tier list that I made prior to the start of the OP 010 post-ban list format, and we're going to modify it as well through EB02 and kind of my thoughts on the format and what I've seen online. But first, let's hear from a word from our sponsor. If you're like me and every single morning you need a hot cup of joe, or I don't know, maybe you just are normal and like coffee, look no further than Funky Rooster Coffee. Just pure fans of coffee. They actually also play the One Piece trading card game. I actually matched up against their owner in one of the tournaments that we played in. You can get a couple different types of coffee on there. Personally, I'm a fan of the Brazilian single origin medium roast, and maybe personally you don't like regular coffee, you're a decaf person, they've got that option too. You can also subscribe to their monthly coffee fix. Every single month you'll get a fresh bag sent to your door of their coffee. Plus, you can save 10% while savoring the rich flavors and unique profiles of their expertly roasted coffee. Personally, I'm kind of a big fan. I was drinking coffee before this, but now with this, I drink this every day. I genuinely like it, whether it's hot, whether it's cold, like I'm into it. And right now on your order, you can actually save 5% off if you use my code Atrocious. The link is in the description below. Definitely go check them out. You can also get some fun stuff like their mug. Use that code, check out their site, and let me know down in the comments how you feel. Okay, so I'm going to be moving stuff around on this tier list first, modifying what I've got. And in terms of the tier 1 decks that I've got prior to this with Luffy, Blackbeard, and Shanks, I think all three of those generally stay on the list. Luffy, currently in OP 11, is being modified to deal a little bit with green, purple Luffy, and I think the West can adopt some of those ideas and practices, as well as Shanks and Blackbeard just generally being still good decks within this format. I definitely undervalued Doflamingo post-ban list, and I still think Doflamingo's pretty good in the EB02 format, so I'm going to move it up to the tier 1 top decks kind of section. This actually isn't the only one that I'm moving up, because I'm actually going to push Lucci up to another boost in the top tier section. Now, a lot of people might question as to why this is, but especially with a great matchup into green purple Luffy, Rob Lucci will continue to stay in this format, especially as it will continuously be in a better position to excel when OP 11 comes out. This is like the starting point of it trending upwards, I think, especially because Rob Lucci high rolling a lot of times just naturally wins games that way. It has a lot of pros heading into this format that is going to be heavily dominated by green purple Luffy, Doflamingo, and even a little bit of Pluffy. I'm going to go ahead as well and remove Buggy from the list. That you guys keep telling me that the deck is good, and it just can't. It has literally done nothing. EB02 won't change that. I'm also going to move Boa down as well as Marco into this tier 3 category. I think Marco has the potential to move up to tier 2.5 once OP 11 comes out, right, with its matchup and control-y style into blue purple Luffy, but into green purple Luffy it's a little bit different, and I think it's definitely in that cope tier along with a lot of these other decks. And Boa, although it had that one really good run, I think it was in OP 09, it has been obsolete in terms of the top tables out in 10, and that could be a little bit of people not necessarily trying it in a sense, but especially if none of the top players are trying it, I don't know if I really believe it. I'm going to move Nami into the top deck squeakers category. I really like Nami within this format, especially because I personally believe, along with several other really good Nami players out here in the West, Nami actually has a pretty good matchup into green purple Luffy, right? Especially the build that we talk about that Adam Cisneros piloted in the OP 010 Pasadena Regionals and won, by the way. The way that Nami was built in that tournament, especially with the removal, can actually provide a ton of problems to green purple Luffy. Like, sure, you can make your leader a 6,000 power leader, but if I just find enough things like Brick Fist, Nojiko, Gravity Blade, it actually makes the game plan really difficult for you as a setup deck, right? Nami thrives against setup decks. The biggest problem, I think, in terms of the matchup for Nami, though, is the 6 cost Luffy. Being able to restand and swing multiple times does present some problems for the deck, but it's pretty manageable. I'm going to move Kid down to 2.5. I was pretty high on Kid heading into the OP 10 post-ban list format, and it has some points here or there, but considering that in OP 10, Nami, Lim, and Reiju all did way better at the regional level than Kid, I mean, I just gotta put it down under. I do want to move up Red Purple Luffy though, especially because in the East, there was a lot of showcasing Red Purple Luffy as a way to beat Green Purple Luffy. Going wide is one way, right, that maybe Zuro or something Doflamingo can try to utilize against Green Purple, but Red Purple Luffy strategizes in going taller than Green Purple, right? Just providing so many more counter cards, especially as you start a 6k leader. Since Green Purple Luffy doesn't necessarily have the early tempo aggression that some of these other decks do, a Red Purple Luffy can kind of thrive in this format, I feel like, especially hitting the right matchups in a tournament. I'm also going to be throwing Bello Betty up one tier in the tier 2 real good category. This is on the cusp of 2.5 and 2. I really think Bello Betty shines in the OP 11 format that we've got going on. I think Green Purple Luffy just has a little bit too many ways to deal with Bello Betty and all those bodies that they place down on the field, but EB02 is definitely the format where Bello Betty trends upward and will soon, spoiler alert, in OP 11 will become like a top 5 deck within the meta. If you really want to get into Bello Betty, especially in OP 11, I highly encourage you to start practicing now in EB02 how to play the deck, so then this summer you can excel with it. I'm also putting Vegapunk in this 2.5 tier, if I can get it correctly in the right tier. Vegapunk has made a lot of noise in the last couple weeks, especially with that new SR that it got that everybody's really excited about. Especially in some high-level European tournaments in the Chinos Cup, Vegapunk's had a lot of success since that format has been introduced. Just being able on a 1 Dawn turn to play that 5-cost blocker Vegapunk and also a 6,000 power, 5,000 power scientist is so good in a lot of different situations, especially with the recursion effect of the please save me 1 cost event. I don't believe in the hype that Vegapunk is in the tier 2 category, but I definitely think, especially at the local level, since it's so cheap to build, that you're really going to have to look out for this. I feel like a lot of local people are going to pick this deck up. This is definitely going to be my cope, but Rosinante is in this tier 3 category. It is most definitely a deck that can steal a run. Having a pretty doggone good matchup into Green Purple Luffy already just excels itself so far, and especially with the different combos of the 2 costs, right? Like Vanderdecken being able to KO anything on the field. Think about deleting giant bodies from Shanks, Pluffy, Rob Lucci, Red Purple Luffy. There's so much potential with this deck and this leader, especially because that end of turn effect, being able to restand as active for a potential block and save some of your weenies like Sugar, right, on a smaller scale swing that people might provide on like searchers. Like the Fishman Rosinante build, I'm there. I believe the hype. It may be overhyped by me, but I believe the hype. Now I'm going to put Rebecca in tier 3 as well. This may just literally be because Cross is just like a different player or skilled player, like a different tiered player than a lot of other people, but I've even seen others start to do well in these online webcam tournaments, having plenty of success with Rebecca. It is definitely a skillful deck to pilot, especially as your leader can't swing in a format where it's really non-existent to have a leader that can't swing, outside of Vegapunk maybe. And I'm really curious to see how some of these players pilot this deck in the different events that we've got coming up. There's some really funny ideas with this leader, very different than how you would build something like Usopp, but I think generally there's a lot of potential that's in that. I still want to keep Enel in tier 3. I think that it is in a better position in EB02, right? Because it did fairly well in EB02 before the Raigo ban happened, but now that the Raigo bans happened, it's not really arguable to say that Enel did go down, but I think it's kind of high enough post-ban that it's more than happy to include on this list. And let me also say in this tier list, for those of you maybe in the comments that are going to ask like, oh, what about starter deck 08 Luffy or OP01 Odin? If your leader's not in this list, I would probably not consider it at all to bring into like a treasure cup or regional. Every one of these decks in this tier list, I could see myself potentially being convinced to bring it in an event. Whereas Purple Shanks, I'm sorry, but I just can't do it. It saves a little bit more time and makes the video much, much shorter, despite losing out on potentially ad revenue, right? I've tried to go through all 100 leaders before, and there's just too many leaders in the game to do that. Now, I will have to say that I do believe that there's a tier 0 deck in this format. It's probably not going to surprise many of you if you've listened to the channel for a while, but I'm super high on green purple Luffy. I literally think that this deck is meta defining. I would be willing to bet on any given major tournament within this format that green purple Luffy is going to be the most populous deck in the room. And that in itself is extremely meta defining, especially because now we've also had this post ban list format that wasn't in the East, where things like Rob Lucci ride a counter pick to green purple Luffy, Go Flamingo being able to handle green purple Luffy, Go even in a Nell being able to kind of battle a little bit with green purple Luffy, gets banned or has bans within it that lower down the power level of the archetype. I fully expect green purple Luffy to dominate. I think it's going to be a tier 0 deck, the best deck in format upon release. You may have even started to see it at your locals or online results, but decks are going to be built around thinking about this matchup specifically, and deck building will probably slightly change based on that. I also might go as far as saying I expect this in every single one of the tournaments to be the most populous deck in a top cut. That is a little bit harder, and maybe I would say top 3 always, like for sure, nail that down, write it in blood. But I will absolutely say that this deck, best deck in format, is just so consistent at what it does, finding what it needs to do and consistently looping what it wants to do. It's very reminiscent, a lot of people are saying, to how red purple Law fell when it was at its peak. I still think this format is going to be a lot of fun, even with the influx of green purple Luffys out there, especially because I still feel like we are in a pretty diverse format, right? Like anything from tier 0 to tier 2.5, I could legitimately see winning a regional or online treasure cup, and that's pretty cool in my opinion, right? Just take whatever deck you're most comfortable with, because I think most players will be playing something around this, and just do your best, have fun. The only matchup that I think you should consistently hit or expect to see in a tournament is green purple Luffy, and hopefully you don't have to fight too many of them. But all in all, it'll be an interesting 3-4 weeks until we get OP 11. So that's going to be all for this one. I know this tier list video was a little bit shorter than the ones that I usually do, but again, just trying to go off of what I had originally for the last format and then modifying a little bit. And with only one mini set that came out, there's honestly like not that much change. I feel like there is a lot of change because we have a BDIF and it kind of warps the format in a sense, but not like what OP 11 is going to be. OP 11, when we get to that one, and we'll do that here in a couple weeks, boy howdy. I'll be posting my EB02 box opening from our live stream here soon, and then if you missed that, go check that out when it comes out. And also I have a couple more boxes on the way, so I'll be doing more opening on that. Maybe live stream, maybe a video. I'm not 100% sure how I want to do it yet. I think I might want to spice things up a little bit, although I love the live streams. And I hope to see you again soon. Thanks for watching.